ready for another lesson?
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Back Row Banter, your favorite casual movie talk podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Adam Schwartz, and on today's episode, we'll be reviewing the one, the only, Oppenheimer. But before we get to any of that, I'm joined today, of course, by Nuclear Nathaniel Ginger.
Haven't I been nuclear before? I feel like I must have.
New for what?
I don't know.
Fallout?
Some
We
point.
didn't review Fallout on here.
I don't know. I feel like it's been around. But
Might
anyways,
have been.
what up, folks? I'm Nuclear Nathaniel. You can use me in either energy or I don't know. What else can you use nuclear stuff for? Physics.
I think just energy.
Okay.
I
guess a lot of
physics,
nuclear stuff has to do with energy. Huh?
I mean, it's you either got nuclear bombs or you got nuclear energy. I don't know much else that's nuclear.
We
besides
sound
the
so
family.
uneducated.
Besides the family, nuclear family.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
the
yeah.
nucleus
The
of
nucleus.
the cell.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's a word that I'm familiar with. I think it's the center, right?
Yeah, or it's nuclear. It's that new brand, Nuclear. I've got Nuclear Eyes. NU-CLEAR. Nuclear.
Is that? Did I just get an ad for like contacts?
I don't know. I just made it up.
Oh, okay. Nuclear. New NEW space clear.
Nope, NU.
And
It's-
U
yeah.
space clear.
It's a U with an umlaut. Nuclear.
Okay. Is it a German brand or are you
Yes.
just appropriating their language?
No, it's a German brand.
Okay. Do you have a lot of connections over there to
German.
Yeah.
contact manufacturers in Germany?
Yeah, of course.
All right.
They heard about me. I'm the Nuclear Nathaniel.
Fair enough. Also joining us today is Theoretical Tyler Vidalis.
It's all theory.
Yeah? Your
Until it's
theoretical contact brand
Yeah.
called Nuclear.
I think it's already. If that's not a thing already,
It
it's gonna
probably
be.
is. Probably is. You're right, but it will be at one point.
Theoretically, Tyler.
Theoretically.
How you doing?
I'm good.
Good. Glad to hear
Coming
that.
off a solid weekend that we just kind of talked about, and yeah, it was dope.
With the boys.
Yep.
Lads.
And that's all we're allowed to say.
Forever.
What happens at undisclosed location stays at undisclosed location.
Right. For all we know, it was the Fortress of the Moles.
Or Helm of the Deep.
Yeah, Helm's Deep.
Helm's Deep.
That's where it was.
Yep, that's what I meant to say. Helm's Deep.
Home of the deep.
Helm of the Deep.
I was close.
Yeah, man, you're not wrong.
Close enough. For someone who's not super into the Lord of the Rings, I got where I needed to go. Rounding out the squadron, of course. It's Big Boom BlakeHolder.
Hey, what up?
I think for the longest time we said you were always going to be Big Bomb Blake on this episode for the Oppenheimer review.
Mm.
And I sat down to write your name and I was like, no.
And we opted to change that.
I switched it up. Big Boom Blake.
Big Boom.
Because there is a big
There's
boom.
a big boom.
There's a
sure.
big
Couple
big
of 'em.
boom. Quite a few. Funny enough, so I sent you guys that meme of Spider-Man 3? No, Spider-Man 1? Is that the first one?
Where it blows up with Aunt May.
Yeah, so it's Aunt May praying on her
That
bedside
meme
table.
is also fucking
and then
All time.
Yeah, Barbie
Green,
viewers.
Green Goblin breaks in and the meme is Barbie viewers during the Oppenheimer screening.
Next
Or
door.
yeah, the Oppenheimer screening next door. So funny enough is me and Noah too are sitting in our Barbie screening. Of course, we're doing the Barbenheimer double feature like every film cinephile should have
you
done
got
this
your
weekend.
you got your Grimace shake in one hand
yeah.
and your Barbenheimer double feature.
I've got my Grimace shake in one hand, my AMC A-list popcorn in the other.
Yep.
And it's a scene in Barbie, sort of spoilers. Basically, there's an old woman on screen. Doesn't, I'm not going to give
It's
context
been
beyond that.
84 years.
That's a quote from the movie. I thought you haven't seen it. No, I'm just kidding. But there's an older lady on screen, and it's a little bit quieter in the theater, and then all of a sudden you just hear the theater shake. Just just the bass from the theater next door. And me and him, like, he leans over, he goes, I didn't think it'd be real. And I was like, what? And then I realized what he was saying, and it was the meme, basically. Is there's an old lady on screen, just like the meme of Aunt May, and then all of a sudden we just hear enormous vibrations coming from the theater next door. It was really funny. The Barbie itself was really funny, but we'll of course talk about that next week.
Bit of sizzle.
But I'm a little not shocked, because it is asking a lot, I guess. But I'm the only one who did the Barbenheimer double feature. Of course, Tyler and Nathaniel had extenuating circumstances.
Yeah, that would have been a hell of a thing to pull off.
Would have been a hell of a thing to pull off with a bachelor party in between. But Blake, I'm assuming you didn't do the Barbenheimer, right?
No, I didn't. So I saw Oppenheimer. Shut up, my pop. So we went again this weekend. So we went to a 10:30 show.
Okay.
AM, 10:30 AM.
Okay, I was about to say
10:30 PM. My pops is sleeping.
Yeah, I was
going to say.
Trailers going on.
But also 10:30 AM. That's a hell of a movie to watch before it's noon.
That's an ultimate dad time for a movie. For an ultimate.
Oh yeah, man. There's only a certain amount of hours that was going to be able to make it work with him. They went to him and my mom went to a Beyonce concert the day before.
Oh, okay.
Hello.
So yeah, he was tired. But then he was like, I want to see the movie. So he called me and we figured it out. But glad I didn't do the Barbie back to back. I mean, that movie, what a fucking blow to just like your mental capacity.
Oppenheimer or Barbie?
Oppenheimer. So like, I'm glad. Like I saw that one and I was like, yeah, I need to like mentally turn my brain off for the next few hours. So how did the double feature go? Which one did you see first?
We saw Barbie first, which I'm glad we did, because
which is the way to do it for sure. I
think it would have been an interesting challenge to watch Oppenheimer first and then try to enjoy Barbie. But I think I enjoyed Barbie way more having seen it before Oppenheimer, because I think it would have been primed to like hate Barbie. So we saw Barbie first with closed captioning, which I need to see as many closed captioning theater screenings as possible. I was so delighted to see subtitles on screen. It was so nice. Especially then watching Oppenheimer right after.
I think I'm starting to be with you on that one, to be honest with you.
Yeah, dude. Especially after watching Oppenheimer right after, which, we'll get to this in the review shortly. But mixing, not quite as bad as Tenet, but in my opinion, there's still some times where I was like, what's he saying?
Oh, I didn't have any issues.
I'm not saying it was perfect.
Really?
But it wasn't, like I said, certainly not bad as Tenet, but definitely not great. Still a little lackluster in terms of the mixing, but I digress. So we saw the 4:45 screening of Barbie with closed captions, and then we had maybe like a 30-minute break between, but we basically went straight into
that's
Oppenheimer. Basically, like 4:45 2-hour movie with previews. Basically got us out at 7:15, which is when the Oppenheimer screening was starting.
Gotcha.
So we had like 20, 30 minutes between gaps
enough time
and
to
previews
empty
and
the
stuff.
tank and get going.
I went to my car because I went in the city for this. So I went to my car in the parking garage below, took out my contacts again until they were already getting dry. And I was like, I'm not going to sit through a 3-hour movie and just being
not without
so
nuclear,
annoyed.
you aren't.
Yeah. All right, that was too good.
That was pretty funny.
That was fucking good.
If you want to sit through Oppenheimer with moist, humid eyes, get nuclear today for your contacts.
That was so well baked in. I'm so happy you made that joke. So yeah, in between, went to my car, took out my contacts, got my glasses all figured out. Got those, went back up. I was so happy to be an A-list member this weekend because this was the most packed I've ever seen the theater, to be honest. This is probably the most packed I've seen it since Endgame. Like people I could tell have not been in like just the type, that just don't go to movies often.
For sure.
I can spot them out, and the entire line for the concessions is just people who like I can tell like are in the pink shirts and are dressing up for the Barbie event. It's the event of the weekend. Let's take some Instagram photos, because there was a Barbie like little photo booth, and I was like, get over yourselves, people.
It's good marketing.
And it is great marketing. But anyway, we go to the line, and just like probably like it was a zigzag line of probably like 5 rows, and it was like to the brim and like spilling out a little bit. And Noah 2 just goes, "Hey, can you use A-list to get by everybody? And I was like, yeah.
Oh yeah, we can.
Oh yeah, we can. Watch this. And we just walk up to the little gold rope,
line.
which is like literally just like an L. Like
Yeah.
there was like 4 or 5 rows zigzagged, and then like just a little L strip for the A-list, and we just walk right by, and I just stare everyone down as I walk to the front, and the cashier goes premiere, and I just walk right in front of everybody, and I've never felt better about myself, honestly. And A-list pays off just for moments like that. Got our
Do you
popcorn,
think
got our
that's how
drinks ready to go.
rich celebrities feel?
That was the
It's gotta be
closest I've
close,
ever
right?
felt. That's the closest I've ever felt.
I'll be honest. We went to the Barrington showing over here
Mm-hmm.
at like 6:30 on Sunday,
Mm-hmm.
and the AMC A-list line was just as busy.
Oh, really?
To the
Oh,
point that like
really?
we walked in, and I went, "Yeah, not getting snacks. Screw this,"
Fair
and just
enough.
went
Yeah.
to the movie and was like, "Nah."
Yeah. I think being in the city helped me out because it just diluted all of the people.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, there's A-list members there, but
Yeah.
it was a very small group compared to like everyone else. So
Yeah, this is the busiest I've seen the theater since Endgame.
yeah, it definitely was. No, 100%. I walked in the theater and I was like, holy crap, I haven't seen this many people here in a minute. I mean, that might be the most packed I've really ever seen a theater.
To the point
almost.
where it was the first time I was like, "Oh shit, man! I hope they got the extra cops here today."
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
I mean
packed.
that even happened to me, fellas, because I was originally going to see it Saturday afternoon. And I was going to just go by myself, and then I forgot what I was doing. I think I was like leaving the gym. I was like, all right, let me see if I can catch a show at like 2:30 or something. And everything within like a 30-mile radius. So this is now probably noon. So I had about 2 hours before the movie was going to go ahead and show. So I checked like South Barrington, Rosemont, Mount Prospect, Vernon Hills, a few places, and like there wasn't a single ticket I could buy unless I wanted to sit directly in the front row.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, this is crazy.
Yeah.
So then I was like, all right, let me check for like tomorrow morning. And then tomorrow morning I was able to find a few openings. So even the next morning when me and my dad went at 10:30, we did Streets of Woodfield. But like the theater was fucking packed, bro. I mean, when I got those tickets that evening, there was maybe 7 seats left. And luckily we were just able to find 2 sitting next to each other, like a few rows up. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
it was tough to find a ticket on this thing, man. Super tough.
Yeah, I bought my tickets 3 weeks ahead of time, and I was so glad I did because I considered switching. We saw Oppenheimer in 70 millimeter. Now, not IMAX 70 millimeter because we'd have to drive to Indianapolis for that. That's the closest IMAX 70 mil screening. Have I considered doing a 9-hour trip and going down there for a day to see it in IMAX 70 millimeter? Yes, I have. But we saw it in regular IMAX 70 millimeter, and I considered changing it to Dolby Cinema instead, and I checked those screenings for the same day as Barbie. Pretty much all sold out, like you said, Blake, except for the very front. And so like we ordered them 3 weeks ahead of time and got good seats for all of our screenings. But yeah, they sold out very quickly. I think this is probably the biggest event since Endgame, almost hands down. Spider-Man No Way
without a
Home.
doubt.
Spider-Man No Way Home is probably a close second for Marvel fans, but this exceeded Marvel fans. You know, Barbie was very mainstream, and add Oppenheimer onto it, which is a Nolan flick, which like if you're not interested in Barbie, you're probably interested in Oppenheimer. There was something for everybody in both of those two movies. I think if you like movies at all, you're one of two. If you like movies at all, you are gonna want to see one of these two movies. Period. Like I think there was something for all audiences this weekend, and by far the busiest I've seen the theaters in quite a while, and that's fantastic.
I mean, of course, we say all that,
Sure.
but then the what was it, third highest grossing movie of all time came out last year.
Sure,
Like, yeah.
I just don't think it was as busy though.
No. You're
In
100%
terms of
correct.
traffic
Yeah,
and
that
stuff?
was definitely
Yeah.
over an extended period of time. But yeah, having both of those out at the same time this weekend, like I even like you said, Spider-Man: No Way Home. The other one that I thought of was
Maverick and Avatar.
Maverick was going to be that other one, but even then, that was over. That just had like a clear run over
Right.
4 weeks as
Right.
well too. Whereas this one, it was just like, man, like everyone and their dad was
Yeah.
at that showing
Yeah.
on Sunday.
This felt like the biggest event since Endgame, in terms of like get to the box office.
Yeah.
because of course Avatar brought in people because it's Avatar, but and so did Spider-Man and so did Maverick, but those were just movies with buzz. This felt like an event. This felt like the place to be was the theater this weekend, which hasn't I don't think happened since Endgame.
100%.
Yeah. So fantastic to see. It was really kind of nice to see that people still do kind of want to see movies. It's just the movies that are out nowadays are maybe not movies people want to spend money to see, but at least it kind of proved people are still willing to go to the movie theater for experiences like Barbenheimer, Very happy to see. Hopefully, listeners, you went to the theaters this weekend as well to catch either Barbie or our main review for this week, Oppenheimer. Nathaniel, if the listener here is new, or maybe they just forgotten, can you give them a rundown of how our review segment works?
I sure can. Folks, if you are new or perhaps you've just forgotten, the way that our review segment works here on Back Row Banter is it is split into two sections. There's a non-spoiler section, and then there's a spoiler section. It's pretty self-explanatory. In the non-spoiler section, we'll go over the movie itself, who directed it, who wrote it, who stars in it, all that kind of stuff. Kind of a tough list this week. Maybe listed to like top 5, and then we'll I don't know, sprinkle other names throughout. I'm sure as we talk.
Cast is insane.
As first and foremost, bit of sizzle, folks. But I think the other name for this movie is "The Boys Are Back," because like any good male actor with charisma that you've been kind of wondering where they've been for the last 2 years, turns out they were in this movie.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was cool. Anyways, getting back on track. Rest of this non-spoiler section, we'll go around, see if we recommend this movie or not. Has to be a yes or no answer. There is no nuance on the internet. And then we'll go into spoiler time. We'll talk about any big spoilers or any big plot twists in the movie itself, and keep going on from there. And I'm sure we'll have a nice long conversation about this guy, because damn, it felt like this thing had something to say a little bit. But Adam, why don't you tell me about Oppenheimer, a movie I think we've been waiting for technically since the beginning of this podcast,
right.
But we saw the first
saw
trailer for this in Tenet, right? Didn't we see the first? Wasn't there a teaser at the beginning of Tenet?
I don't think it was
I don't
Tenet.
think it was Tenet.
It was something
like
Nope. It was Nope, wasn't it? It was 100% Nope, which
yeah,
was over a year
that
ago.
Sounds more right.
And
I know it was in the
and
summer.
It had the countdown.
It did. It had the countdown, and because I remember the people I saw it with, because I was in DC, the people I saw Nope with were like laughing almost. They're like, "What the hell was that?" And I was like, "No, you guys don't understand what that was." I'm so excited.
That's actually fucking peak cinema.
Yeah, I was like, watch your mouth, all right? Be careful what you say.
Speaking of which, before we get into this anymore, let me set the scene as well too, because I saw this in IMAX at the AMC over here in Barrington, which I think is not a 70 millimeter, or
It's not.
There's
There's only
is IMAX.
30 theaters
Right.
worldwide doing IMAX 70 millimeter.
Right.
Closest one to here is Indianapolis.
But while I'm sitting in there and this thing is packed, which if you've been to the IMAX up near us, it is like it's a huge screen, but it is also
It's a massive theater.
It is the biggest
It is a very
per
big theater.
capita chair that they have in there,
Yeah.
because it's still the one that doesn't have any of the recliners in it. But
Did you see it at Streets or at Barrington?
at Barrington,
I thought Barrington reclined.
the IMAX doesn't.
Are you sure?
I'm 1,000% sure.
Yeah, I know IMAX.
I sat in
doesn't
that
'cause
chair
that
for
Streets
3
of
hours.
Woodfield-
Okay.
I know.
That's valid. That's valid.
The IMAX at Streets of Woodfield doesn't recline either.
Yeah.
Neither of those do.
Yeah.
I know the IMAX at Streets of Whitfield sucks. Unless they've redone it recently. The last time I was there, I hate it. I feel like I'm on an airplane. The seat's right up to my knees.
Anyways, moving on. Setting the
Regardless-
scene
yeah,
one more time.
Yeah, irrelevant, but anyway.
I'm in there in the IMAX. It's packed to the gills. There's the most people I've seen in a theater in forever. And right before the trailer for Oppenheimer starts, the trailer for the new Exorcist starts. And it comes...
Yeah.
And it starts, if you haven't seen it yet, it starts really kind of like easy and then goes completely insane. And
Yeah.
the whole theater, just after it ended, was like... as one, and some guy right behind me goes, "Well, I'm not seeing that," and everyone starts dying, and I was like, "God, I miss theaters. I miss
Dude.
people. I miss having everyone at the movie theater for moments like that."
My Barbie screening, we'll talk about this next week, but my Barbie screening was fantastic in that regard.
Like,
I'll leave it there, but it was fantastic for watching a movie with people that want to watch a movie together. You know what I'm saying?
It was just the fact that it was a trailer too,
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
that. It
right.
was a trailer that had that effect on people. I was
Right.
like, God, I haven't seen a good horror movie with a bunch of people in a theater in forever. You know that.
Yeah,
that,
the
that
horror
was-
movies especially recently.
Yeah, that was such a cool experience. Anyways,
Yeah.
back to Oppenheimer. Let's go into it. Let's talk about it.
Let's do it. Directed, of course. Do I even need to say who it's directed by? You know, it's my man. It's Chris Nolan. Written, of course, by Chris Nolan, based on the book by Kai Bird and Martin Sherwin, starring, do I even need to say who it's starring? Cillian Murphy in the titular role of J. Robert Oppenheimer. Emily Blunt is here. Robert Downey Jr. is here. Friend of the pod, Florence Pugh is here.
She makes an appearance.
She makes an,
Sure does.
sure does. Let's see. I'm trying to pick out who else is important here. Jason Clarke, I would say, is another big role.
Josh Hartnett, I would argue, has a very big
Josh
role in
Hartnett,
this.
who
As
I'm trying to see.
Shout out Josh Harden, man. That's
Ah, I
one
see
where
him.
I didn't know he was in this, and
Yep.
obviously Adam knows why I love him. We were just talking about 30 Days of Night the other day, and I know
And
him from that
Faculty?
as well as like Halloween H2O, I think.
yeah, it isn't
Or
Faculty one of his too.
Resurrection and the Faculty, yes.
Yeah.
So just like unbelievable. When I saw him, man, I was like, you know what? I'm sold on this movie. I had
Immediately.
no idea he was in it.
Yeah, he's good too. He's really good. Who else should we be shouting out here? Robert Downey Jr. I don't know if I said him already. Yeah.
Mhm.
Man, there's so many people. As I'm
Kenneth
going,
Branagh.
Kenneth Branagh's here. You have Rami Malek.
Yes, that is true as well.
Bernard.
Yeah, that is David Krumholtz, who is an excellent actor and elevates anything he's ever in, and I'm so happy he was here.
Yeah, I kind of want to leave it there because if we name them all, if we name a couple, we're gonna have to name them all.
As I said, there's at least like 40 actors in this
Matt
movie.
Damon. I don't know
Yeah.
how I didn't even think of that. Matt Damon's here. And I think the other one I want to shout out, David Dastmalchian.
Oh, yeah.
Nolan film. He's in it.
Friend of the
course.
pod, David Dastmalchian.
Dude, he's sneakily got to be 6 on Entropy list.
Yeah, we have this conversation every
I
time.
don't
now.
care. I love this conversation. All right, let's see if we can do it quick. Suicide Squad, Prisoners. Now this, is he in Tenet at some point?
I can't remember, to be honest with you.
I don't believe so, but yeah, he's quietly up there. So you got to think Prisoners.
He's not in Tenet.
The Suicide Squad.
Prisoners, Suicide Squad. We have this. He's in Dune.
This-
Is he in Dark Knight?
he is in
Dark Knight's
Dune.
not on the pod yet.
Dark Knight's not on the pod. Neither is Blade Runner 49. But I'm trying
No,
to see.
say it. Maybe we're overestimating.
He might be overestimated.
Prisoners.
I already have Prisoners.
No, okay, never mind.
Is he in Arrival?
No, I don't think so.
I don't believe so.
Right,
No.
yeah.
All right, maybe he's not quite at 6. I feel like he should be at 6, but maybe he's not.
Yeah. But another guy. I mean, like, just for listeners, this cast is fucking loaded.
Yeah.
To
I
the
can
point, like,
keep
you're better
going.
off just like going in there and
You're,
just
you're,
seeing.
yeah, you're gonna see so.
There's
many
going to be
names.
someone in there that you recognize from something. You'll just be like,
Yeah.
oh my God, I haven't thought about them
And it's-
forever. There they
Right.
are.
Right.
Yeah, and it's unbelievable too, because some of these actors and actresses we're naming are people who have such finite roles in this thing, and it's like they're getting A-list actors to come in and give us 6 lines.
Yep.
Yeah,
2
yeah,
minutes screen
yeah,
time.
100%.
It's like unbelievable.
It's just it is kind of unbelievable in that aspect where it's just like, oh yeah, this character
Shows up
is in
for,
like 3 frames.
Yeah, shows up for-
It's just like this actress or actor is just in maybe 3 seconds of the movie. But that's what my boy Chris brings. He can just
He's
get
got
whoever
some
he
juice.
wants to do whatever he wants, and if he wants to give Cillian Murphy the lead role, he's gonna do it. And you know what? I don't blame him for it. The IMDb summary reads as follows. I say that, and then I realize I don't have it up. The story of American scientist J. Robert Oppenheimer and his role in the development of the atomic bomb. That's all you need. Fantastic IMDb summary.
There you go.
You kind of already know what this is about if you've ever heard of Oppenheimer or the Manhattan Project. You kind of know what you're gonna get here. It's basically it. I will say though, it's not just the Manhattan Project. It does focus on before and after. I would say there's kind of like an hour almost dedicated to each. Feels like. I mean, I don't want to go super spoilery here, but
Right.
there's definitely more than just the Manhattan Project in this, which you may or may not have expected based on the trailers. So it's definitely not just the development of the atomic bomb. It centers around it. The whole story does, but it's not just they're in New Mexico the whole time developing it. Definitely more than that. What are we thinking here, guys? This has been, we reviewed Tenet since that came out, we back when we were doing news, this was, news stories that we were breaking was, hey, Cillian Murphy's in the Oppenheimer movie. Hey, Robert Downey Jr., he's in the Oppenheimer movie. Hey, Florence Pugh and all these other actors, they're all in the Oppenheimer movie. Holy crap, is Oppenheimer about to be the greatest movie ever? Is it the greatest movie ever, Nathaniel?
No, it's not.
Shame on you. No, I'm just kidding.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. But is it a great movie?
I think it is. I think it's a very. It's a great movie. Yeah, man. I don't know. It's one that is marinating. I'm letting it marinate. Letting it marinate in the old mind brain.
Right.
A little bit.
You saw it last night?
I saw it Sunday.
So
Sunday
that's
night.
2 nights ago.
2 nights ago. Yeah, and it's
From when we're recording.
Yes. Yeah, you just want me to kick it off here? I was,
Just go in.
the way
yeah.
you were leaning it up to, I thought you were starting off. Yeah, I really like this movie. I think it is Nolan coming into his vision of the epic, but in where previous directors and masters of the craft who worked on the epic films, your David Leans, your I always forget the other guy's name, Peter something or other, but they were always consumed with giant vistas and capturing the world itself and how small man is. And I think Nolan's kind of thing is he has reframed that on the man itself, on man himself, and kind of used his style to instead look at the epic nature of his mind and how that interacted with people and how he interacted with the world around him. And I think he has kind of refined, I think Nolan I'm talking about as has refined this kind of style as a director that is very engaging to the viewer in trying to envelop them in the moments of the film. We're talking about obviously his score we've brought up a couple different times, and where at Tenet it felt like it didn't necessarily work all the way, particularly with the mixing. On this one, I mean, automatically, like I said at the top, I did not have any audio issues in the theater that I was in or in the setup that I was in that I could tell 100%. I think they definitely had it cranked, but in terms of speaking or anything like that, I didn't have those or lines of dialogue or anything like that. I didn't have those issues, but I think I might have also been aided in the fact that I knew going in that we were going to get a lot of accent work, obviously, and just by the nature of all the different scientists and everything like that. But anyways, yeah, man, it's a movie that I think has a ton of things going for it and is something to really admire in a lot of ways, and I'm sure we'll talk a lot about it, but I mean, your almost initial visceral reaction is just kind of like, holy shit, that's it. Really kind of stands your hair back and puts you back in the seat. So if I'm being overly descriptive and not necessarily as concise in my summary or initial thoughts as perhaps I usually am, it's just because this thing is a beast of a movie to get into, and you can't really be concise about it too much.
It's a full course meal and then dessert.
Yeah, for sure.
It's everything. Yeah, it'll sit with you.
Tyler, what were your thoughts and experience? I haven't heard. When did you see this?
Today.
Oh boy.
Oh, man.
So you're fresh.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts, man?
So yeah, as far as viewing experience goes, it was a regular digital theater, but it does not downplay the sound at all. I'll have to send you guys a video because I kind of forgot to, but probably like 30 minutes left. Projection freeze.
No.
For like 15 minutes, bro.
Really?
Yeah.
That deserves its own hold on. You get your own trombone for
You
that
saw
one,
this at an
man.
AMC?
Yeah,
I've never had that happen at an AMC.
me neither.
Wow.
Pain.
Yeah,
That is
So-
tragic.
a little disappointing, but
So then what happened? Was it resolved?
it was. Yeah,
Okay.
it was just frozen for like 15 minutes, and then
But total immersion ruined and all
Yeah.
that good
Yeah.
stuff.
yeah, people were talking in the theater.
Gosh.
I think I was in there with like, yeah, I think they were all over 50.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you saw
I
it
just-
today on a Tuesday and
I
early
just heard an
afternoon,
older
late
couple to
afternoon.
the right of me, an older couple to the left of me, an older couple behind me, and they're like, "Let's just get our money back."
Oh no.
Oh man.
Theaters
Let's
are
just
back,
come
ladies
back,
and gents.
We'll get
Yeah.
we got a free
Theaters
movie.
are back.
And I was like, "You guys are idiots. I didn't pay for this movie."
Yeah, I've got AMC A-list.
I've got A-list. You guys even have smartphones?
So
Continue, though,
That
Ty.
was a little disappointing. It definitely does take you out of it because this movie is the sheer size of this movie
Mm-hmm.
is pretty incredible and a feat in itself. So but overall, I thoroughly enjoyed myself throughout the entire viewing. Again, one of those movies that I'm just trying to keep this trend where I obviously am aware of the movie. I probably watched the first trailer, but I'm not going in there looking at like cast or anything like that. So it was very cool to kind of see different actors or actresses kind of pop up and pop in for certain parts of the movie. And we could talk about just like the overall reveal of them as well, that I thought was pretty cool. But yeah, definitely a lot to say. It's definitely a bigger movie, bigger director, obviously. Just a huge cast list. The score is phenomenal, but we will talk about mixing, as I'm sure some of us have kind of already relayed. I think Adam said something about it earlier. But yeah, man, very, very, very cool, very well done. We'll get into some other things that I liked artistically, but yeah, I'm definitely in on this one. Blake, what'd you think? What are kind of your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm pretty much with the consensus here of the group and the pod, as well as pretty much anyone who's seen this film. Excellent film. I mean, this is a movie that's for moviegoers, right? Or not even moviegoers, for people who actually love film and cinema. I mean, it's a 3-hour, basically history lesson, right, on things that maybe some people are very aware of. Where coming in from my background, I wasn't quite aware. Obviously, I idea it's about a bomb, but didn't really know the ins and outs of this. Didn't really know the difference between that and the hydrogen. Wasn't quite sure in where this actually lied in history. So maybe some of that's going to be the ignorance on my end. Funny kind of blip on this is that we were talking about historians, me and Nathaniel, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Oh
And I
yeah.
actually thought Albert Einstein was like from the 1700s. And he was like, no, man, he was actually alive in like 1940. And sure enough, he's in the movie. So that was like really funny when I watched
that
the movie.
crazy?
I was like, oh my, unfucking believable. When Nathaniel told me that, I was mind blown. I was like, I could have sworn I thought he was also the guy who, and this is crazy, I'm gonna say this on pod. I thought Albert Einstein was the guy who held the kite up in the air for electricity.
Ben
And somebody
Franklin?
told me that's not him. Is that Thomas Jefferson?
That's
Ben
Franklin.
Franklin.
That's Franklin.
Ben Franklin. As you can see, my history as a black male in America didn't pay attention to history class at all. So it was really funny to see Albert. Holy shit. So
Yeah.
but yeah, excellent film. Christopher Nolan once again is just a visionaire in terms of what he's able to do with cinema. I mean, I love Denny V, but Nolan's got it. He's got a lot of things going for him, right? So I think Denny V he's gonna have his hands full with Dune Part 2, but I don't think it'll be as successful as this is at the box office and things of that nature. But
Blake,
as we
did you
touched on
see it? Sorry, did you see it in IMAX?
I did, yeah.
Okay,
I
nice.
caught it in IMAX. So not the most comfortable chairs, unfortunately. They're not the recliners recliners. They're like the OG theater chairs from like '04.
That's what I saw it in the same thing. The theater I saw it in, both Barbie and Oppenheimer were just like straight back chairs, which
Yeah,
I was like, whatever.
tough for 3 hours, man. Tough for 3 hours. But yeah, cast is excellent. The mixing, as we all kind of touched on before, is something that I feel like Nolan is now kind of known for, pretty much since it's probably like The Dark Knight Rises. Right, because I remember when that first came out, people were like, "I don't really know what the fuck Bane is saying."
Yeah,
I think that's kind of where it started.
It definitely got worse.
Carried over from then.
Yeah, Interstellar is the one where I remember it first time watching it in theaters, being like, "Man, I didn't catch some of that. Holy shit!"
For sure. So I don't know. I don't quite know. Maybe my brain's just not there. But yeah, I have a hard time figuring out why that is, because there's certain scenes in this where the audio, you're just like, holy fuck, like I have no idea what they're saying, and it's frustrating because there, as we said, there's characters who come in and out. There's so many characters moving around in this. There's so many moving pieces where you can miss like a time capsule of a history lesson through like dialogue, and it's like a 30-second dialogue for anything they're saying.
Yeah.
And then it's like that whole sequence of, you'd be like, oh, I remember when that, like, oh, I've heard it. I remember history books. And like that shit is just gone if you don't catch what they're saying immediately. And there's a few times where I had to like look at like, what did he just say? You know? So that's kind of the unfortunate drawback. But I mean, just in terms of what he's able to put on to film and bring to cinema is mind blowing. So yeah. And Cillian Murphy does awesome. Robert Downey Jr.
There you go.
Great role, man.
Yeah.
Great role. This may be the best, not even maybe. I think this is the best we've seen him. Iron Man is like cool, but he plays Iron Man. I don't care. I'm the biggest Marvel person.
Man.
This is phenomenal to watch him do this. You know what I mean? So
Zodiac,
yeah, man, I think
Zodiac comes to mind.
Oh, I forgot he's in
But you might be right.
I take that back then. I'll give you that. I like Zodiac.
He's less.
I like Zodiac.
He's matured in this one. You know, he's an
for sure.
experienced actor at this point. Whereas like Zodiac, from my understanding, is him kind of coming back to acting. In the late 90s.
I mean, this is gonna be one of those things where I think like your guys' age and just not seeing him in other stuff before.
That's
he was
also
the biggest actor on the planet as well too. Is kind of working against you because like this is the zone we knew Downey could work in when he's sober and on his game as well too. Yeah, before he kind of went too crazy with all that stuff. But yeah, you're right. Zodiac would be, I think, the other one in his kind of recent catalog. That
was like 20 years ago.
But that's
relatively
recent. Pre and post prison stint.
That's a whole MCU's phase. That's like 4 phases of MCU ago.
But I think a lot of what this is showing is that, man, fuck, we've been losing good actors to shit movies with shit writing for a long time now, boys.
So it was good to have Nolan be able to put that cast together on this thing, and even getting people in there for fucking. People are in here for a few lines, man. Like, it's honestly mind blowing that people are open to work that much, where they're like, I'll drop everything and I'll give you fucking 2 minutes of screen time. And that's just how prominent of a figure he is in cinema. So that says it.
Well, they said this and Barbie combined cost less than the Marvel Secret Invasion stuff that's on Disney Plus right now.
Really?
Yeah.
Hilarious.
That no one is watching.
Are you sure? That sounds insane. Because I remember hearing
this movie cost $80 million.
I thought it was 100.
No,
I heard 100.
Well, either way, 100 is the. Last week we watched Indiana Jones and Dial of Destiny that cost $225 million. Doesn't hold a candle to this fucking thing.
Okay, well I won't.
And has
say
a
anything
third
about
of the
Indiana
actors.
Jones.
Spoiler alert.
But
yeah, man, like I
regardless,
said, all around though, fellas. Yeah,
I'm saying visually,
great film.
Sure.
And just that's crazy to me. Sorry. Anyways, I'm already on a tangent.
No worries. But yeah, I just want to finish up. Yeah, it's a great film all around. I mean, I would recommend this. Me and my dad talked about it for some time afterwards. We grabbed lunch. But yeah, this is definitely one of the better films I have seen in a while, for sure. Great drama.
Also, just for more recent work that people might remember from RDJ is the Sherlock Holmes movies.
Yeah, love those.
I've never seen those, man.
They're good.
They're actually pretty good.
They're really solid.
Yeah.
And then Tropic Thunder. which obviously everybody
For
forgets
sure, definitely was thinking of that.
Yeah, man, that is.
Which he'd probably be canceled if they tried to make that movie
100%.
in post like 2019, where everybody is now a conscious woke person.
I mean, I think if you made it 2 years later than they did, it's
Yeah.
cutting it close.
Him playing a black person is fucking hilarious.
I forgot what podcast
sure.
he was on. It might have been Joe Rogan, but
was.
someone was saying how he was like Indiana Jones, like sliding under the closing door with that movie.
Yeah.
Like he got the blackface out of there like right in time, which is a funny kind of comparison. But yeah, for me personally, I really enjoyed this movie. I mean, I think this was great. It was a little different in a lot of ways than I was maybe I shouldn't say a lot of ways. It was different than I was expecting in certain ways. That being said, though, it's like this was a good time. It was just a lot. It was just so much for me. Maybe I was feeling the fatigue from the double feature, but I think most people can agree he fits about as much as you can fit in 3 hours. I don't know how you fit much more movie in this movie. I feel like I was maxed out at the end of this 3 hours. But visually, I think this is breathtaking in a lot of places. This is one of his best looking films. I think the editing in terms of like being able to tell this kind of story and obviously that comes into play with the script itself, but between the script and the editing and how the story is structured, I think is really good, and how they kind of lay all of that out, because this, I don't know the exact time frame of all of this, but it is decades. It is decades fit into this 3 hours, and the fact that they're able to tell such a coherent story, it's overwhelming in some aspects of it, but they still do a pretty good job of it. And I think there's a lot of examples you could point to. I think First Man would be one of the ones I would point to as kind of a recent example that I can think of off the top of my head, where they do try to fit in so many years into a movie and they don't do a good job of it, where they're spending too much time here and not enough time here, or they glaze over things and they do time jumps and all that kind of stuff. The fact that they were able to fit in so much time into such a relatively small amount of time is incredibly impressive, because they do it very well, and I don't think there are a lot of movies that could do this, or a lot of filmmakers especially, both directors and writers, that could do this as well as Nolan has done here. And so that's all very impressive. And there's not much more I can say that hasn't already been said by these other three gentlemen alongside me. I think the score is fantastic, looks great, acting up and down, couldn't be better. This is a masterpiece for sure. Is it Nolan's best?
I was gonna say, is it Nolan's masterpiece? That was gonna be the
I don't
question.
think so. Personally,
Fuck.
I think this is the culmination of a lot of what Nolan has learned. I think this definitely shows off a lot of what he wants to kind of bring in terms of his films, like what he likes to do in his films. This shows off a lot of that in terms of like the how he plays the storytelling, how he plays with the camera, all that kind of stuff. The whole time aspect isn't as prevalent here as it is in some of his other films, but you still feel it. The like I said, there's decades in 3 hours. Like you still feel a sense of urgency with all this stuff.
Well, it's split timelines too.
And I didn't want to say that for spoiler reasons, but sure, there's split timelines too. That
It's
it
a
bounces
structure
back.
thing.
Of course, there's split timelines that they go back and forth between. So all of that is here too. I do think this is probably the most Nolan film there is, and this is probably the best way to put it. Would you disagree? You seem like you disagree.
Yeah, you clearly haven't rewatched Tenet.
Yeah,
I'm just messing with you.
I
I'm just
haven't
messing with
rewatched.
you.
Actually, I have rewatched.
I
Tenet,
know,
and
I
still
know.
hate it. Well, I don't hate it, but
So, and that's, and I don't know if that's. Nah, yeah, we'll save it for spoilers. But I do kind of have a comment on Tenet in this back to back. But go ahead, Adam, finish your.
No, I think you said, is this the most Nolan film? And I don't think so.
you don't think so?
I think this is Nolan No, I think this is more of a Nolan statement rather than a Nolan kind of film overall. I think
could kind of agree with that.
Nolan's big, I think, kind of artistic theme is times,
Right.
and times kind of
In that aspect, it's
times kind
definitely not.
effect on humanity and kind of it as the great enemy of us all. But so I don't think it's quite that, but I think it's Nolan's clearest statement as a movie in terms of like encapsulating a theme and encapsulating what he is wanting to say in the movie itself.
I would
sometimes
agree with
to its
That's
detriment.
maybe a better way to put what I'm trying to say. But,
Sometimes to its detriment, I would say as well too. There's a couple of things that you're just like watching there in this movie, and you're like, well, that's, if not on the nose, pretty kind of funny in some ways as well too.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about that a little bit more in spoilers as well too.
Yeah. Speaking of spoilers, let's jump on in there. I'm assuming we'll recommend all around.
Actually, it's just
for sure.
guys, I can't recommend you go see that. No, of course I'm a fucking recommend on this one.
Yeah, I think we're recommends all around for sure. With that being said, we're gonna go ahead and head into spoilers. So if you've not seen Oppenheimer and you do not want it spoiled for you, go ahead. Check that episode description where you can jump to the timestamp I've left, where you'll be taken to our ranking of the movie up upon our glorious Entropy list.
Spoilers. That was my
Shit goes boom.
Shit goes boom.
I like that. I like that a lot.
So
Okay. I still haven't caught my breath from my screening on Saturday. This has been 3 days. Today is Tuesday as we're recording this. I still can't wrap my head around everything that happened in 3 hours. To be
I
honest,
want to watch it again immediately after it's done.
yeah,
I do want to go see this again.
this is definitely one of the ones on that one where I'm just like, man, I could sit down and watch that again.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say between this and Tenet, because there were times where, as much as we get on here, and even most people for that matter, kind of got on there and basically took a shit on Tenet in terms of like, man, I need to watch this again to kind of understand where obviously this, as an Oppenheimer, is rooted in reality because it's part of history. And I can't speak for everybody, but for myself watching this, there's so many characters and people involved. Sometimes I'm like, I don't know what the fuck is going on. And that's the only thing where I would say, like, I mean, that's the same thing people kind of complained about Tenet about. So I'm curious where that lies, because unless you guys all were able to comprehend this movie to its full extent,
no,
kudos to you. Right. So if not, then like, why are we able to give high praise on this? And then I don't want to make it an Oppenheimer versus Tenet to take the shine away from Oppenheimer. But you see what I'm saying, fellas? Like, I guess where's the disconnect, right? Because I'm also on that train where I think this movie's fucking awesome.
Yeah, so where I'll say on that one, Blake, is, well, I guess just if I could talk for myself specifically, I agree with you. I think Tenet is rewatchable, and I do think Tenet actually, I'm holding it down for a movie, even though I'm kind of contradicting myself because I still have only seen it once, but I still hold that movie fondly.
Mm-hmm.
But with this one, I think the advantage is the fact that it's a real life thing and a well-known story. And that even for like me, who is a person with a generalized knowledge of it, like because of who like Niels Bohr and Albert Einstein and Heisenberg and those guys are, I know about them as just from other people, so I could kind of pay attention to that kind of thing. There's definitely times where I didn't know, what the plot was specifically on at that time, but I think because of the way this movie is structured and the way that it's set up between the two black and white timeline and the in color timeline, you could kind of piece together what's going on if you're paying attention, even if you're losing the dialogue.
Right.
And I think, truthfully, I think Nolan has honed that skill from everything he learned on Tenet, where even if the movie's audio mix isn't necessarily on there, you can pick up what's going on and where you are in the movie itself through context clues and structure and stuff. And that's something that I think as this movie gets more rewatches, people will pick up more and kind of like point out, and like there'll be film essays written about this shit. But that's also where it gets to having only seen it once and it being so big and so long. Even for people that that analyze these kind of things, it's tough to wrap your mind around
Oh,
so far, or
100%.
synthesize that kind of thing.
I don't know how you could pick up every single detail without maybe having read the book that this is based on, American Prometheus, which I low-key am very interested in now reading. But that's besides the point. Without maybe having read that book
Or watched I know there was a series called Manhattan.
Yes.
That came out a few years ago. That was like a TV series that was supposedly pretty good as well too.
Without having an extreme amount of context for this film, I don't know how anyone who doesn't have that can comprehend everything that happens in this film within just the film. I think there's way too much here for anyone to realistically sit down and be like, oh, I understood line by line, beat for beat, what was going on in every single move or every single scene, and who every single character is and what all of the relations are. There's just way too much, I think, for the average person and even the above average film viewer, which we are, the four of us are, and we still can't fully comprehend every detail to the nth degree.
But I think because the movie's so packed with that other stuff, like that doesn't take away from the storytelling or the film or the filmic process of it at this point.
I don't think it does. That's not what I was saying. I was just saying I don't think that's possible to do. I think, and I don't know if that's even should be your expectation. I even had the expectation kind of coming in the first 20, 30 minutes, understanding, oh, this is the pace this movie is going, and I don't know if it's ever going to slow down. Because it felt like a 3-hour montage. Does it?
Yeah.
When?
It does.
When? The last 45 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's 2 hours and 15 minutes.
But I think it's done that way on purpose. It's structured like a modern action film up until the point that the bomb drops and he loses control. We're in spoilers, yeah?
Yeah.
Up until the Trinity test, and he loses control of the bomb to the government, and it immediately becomes not his thing anymore. That's when this movie switches into a much differently edited film overall.
Oh, it definitely
does. Too. And the different pacing as well. So that's, I think, is also, again, and this is what I'm talking about, reflective of that. Like, I think there's a reason the first half of this is edited like the modern action movie, and then the last half is this holy shit, what hath God wrought meditation on this kind of thing, or last third, I should say, or quarter even.
I think last third. It feels like about.
But
the
I
last
think
hour.
I think that's what you're picking up on as the viewer as well too. And I think you're right. It does start with the ground running, and it is just going.
Right.
And maybe as a person that's just watched a million movies, I was able to kind of follow it a little bit easier for me because personally, I felt that this movie was paced really well and that I felt like the 3 hours flew by.
It did.
And sometimes,
you're not wrong.
Just to touch on your point, I think, sometimes people will probably follow a format a little easier, not necessarily the information.
100%.
And I think some people are trying to absorb as much information as possible versus being able to kind of, not to pun the movie, but compartmentalize. That was terribly said, but
Compartmentalize.
I hear you. I have a difficult time saying that.
I just had Starburst, so my mouth is like over salivated. So I'm like, but yeah. Anyways, I think we have that ability to be able to kind of do that, and that kind of helps us break it up a little bit more, and we're kind of used to that kind of go like, okay, this is a different scene. I can kind of put whatever information I just had and still store some of it, but not have to absorb all of it. And so first watching, I think we'll probably be able to absorb that a little bit more.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Fuck, man. This movie, was anyone else just gutted, devastated? We'd been hearing kind of some Twitter rumblings ahead of time of this movie coming out that people were leaving it and being like, oof. That was heavy towards the end or that kind of thing. And I couldn't, having heard that ahead of time, me personally, I was like, God, we're going to get like some horrific image of Hiroshima or something like that. And this movie jump scared me, or sound like suspense scared me to the point that when they did the Trinity test, I was like in there like, all right, well, I'm going to cover one ear. And then it just never really came. And it totally got me. Like, it played with my expectations to the point where I was like, gosh. And then it's I think he's someone take me. I've lost my thread here. Blake, please pick me up.
I got you. Yeah, the Trinity test, right, where they do the actual bomb drop. I mean, that scene is that scene is awesome because it
What-
plays with the suspension, the tension
It,
of when you're gonna hear the blast.
and it kind of
right?
feels like it kind of like in the movie itself almost comes up out of nowhere. Like you're not really expecting it, and all of a sudden it's like boom, boom, boom,
You
boom
kinda-
over here.
You kind
like,
of forget that there
Yeah,
should be a boom.
that they're no, I'm not
Yeah.
even I'm not even talking about the explosion itself or that moment. I'm talking about the test in the structure of the movie itself. Like as
Oh.
it comes up in the movie, it's just kind of like rambling along, and all of a sudden it's like bam, Trinity
I see what
test
you're saying.
time. Like
yeah, they're like building the
Yeah.
bomb, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden you just cut to the test.
yeah,
You're
yeah,
100%
and it's
right, yeah.
very much like
It's
you're
very
kind of
sudden.
caught back as the audience
Right.
member, and kind of like, and then you're approaching it, and then even to the more so what you're saying, like it does play with because it's obviously initial impact. And then shockwave comes afterwards,
Right.
and then
Right.
comes afterwards as well too. And they play that so well in the film. Yeah, continue, Blake, please.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I was gonna say yeah. So they play that well because obviously once the bomb first goes off, right, there is some time until the shockwave, and then you hear the boom of the blast. But the lead up to that is great, right? Because there's that close up on Oppenheimer or Cillian Murphy's character, right, and you can kind of see just like the reflection of the fire through like the glasses he has on, and you can see his face, and it's just like it's one of those things where you're like, wow, this is actually a monumental time in science, and like, what the fuck did I just create? Right? It's like
Right.
one of those faces, and you can see like the standpoint behind it. So I think that's kind of what Nathaniel's saying. There were some test screenings when this thing first came out where people were saying like, this is almost a borderline like horror film, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's where that stuff results from. One thing I do want to say is how you guys were talking about the Trinity test happening. It's definitely north of 2 hours into the movie of that happening. But I think that's excellent filmmaking because even the last hour of this, where just basically like the court case drama, like that could have been its own fucking movie itself,
Right.
To be
Oh, it
honest
definitely
with you,
could have been.
and that was really interesting too to kind of see that and everybody go through and give their testimonies and their depositions, or maybe that's not the correct word because I guess it didn't really occur in a courtroom, right? But
Right.
you understand my point.
Well, that's the whole point of it, right?
Where
It didn't happen in
Yeah.
the courtroom.
Yeah, the interview. Anyways,
But continue, Blake.
so
sorry.
yeah, no, and I'm saying like that could have been a whole film itself, right? Like in another universe, or if this isn't made by Nolan, that is the film, right?
Right.
The film is just a court case the entire time, right?
Right.
But with Nolan, you get the buildup of like Oppenheimer's character, the side characters, the people he meets, his political stances, the
Florence
Trinity
Pugh.
test, the build up to that, and it's man, his mind, as we say, he's just tapped in, man. He's tapped into something.
I want to go back briefly to the what is the word I am looking for that is in my head? Ensemble cast of this movie itself, and just again just heap praise on the fact that you have all of these actors turn up for moments, or they're at the movie at the 30-minute mark, you don't see them again until the hour 15, and they pop in again at the last 30 minutes or something. But each and every one of them I thought was performing really well, was finding something in the character, was finding something about it that you just, as soon as they were interacting off of Murphy's Oppenheimer or whoever they were working with in the scene itself too, you just immediately felt something or understood where they were and kind of what they were bringing to the table at that time. You understood why they were there and that kind of thing, and just
Right.
how well that was done. I particularly loved David Krumholtz's character. I think it's Robbie, who comes up to him at one point and wants to get off the project, and he kind of says, well, I don't want the sum of 3,000 years of scientific innovation to be a weapon of mass destruction, and that kind of thing. It has that kind of just, I don't know, he gets it with such gravitas. And then I think what Tyler was building up to, we talk about the Gary Oldman cameo as Truman.
So good.
Like, yeah, where you're just like, holy shit, is that Gary Oldman?
Yep.
All of a sudden, and he basically tells Oppenheimer to fuck off and stop feeling so sorry for himself. And
it says, "Don't let that crybaby back in my office."
yeah, like just fucking
that was
brutal,
funny.
man.
That was a funny line. For sure.
Casey Affleck shows up for like 2 scenes
Yep.
as the most terrifying man in the world, apparently.
Yeah,
Je-
he throws me Christoph Waltz vibes.
oh
from,
yeah, man.
Insidious Bastards.
Inglorious Bastards, Insidious
Sorry,
Bastards would be
yeah,
crazy
Insidious,
too.
Yeah,
you know,
Insidious
yeah.
Bastards
We're
with
all over
Zachary
the place.
Quinto.
That'd be a scary movie.
That'd be fucked. Yeah. Who was the other one I was gonna say? Josh Peck. Josh Peck just shows up.
Josh
in this.
Peck, yeah, shows up for like maybe 2 scenes.
Olivia Thirlby was another one where I was like, "Holy crap, that's Dred's judge that showed up there with them."
Benny Safdie.
That was the other one I was going to point out.
Yeah.
Benny Safdie as Teller, another kind of like side character in this. And shout out to both Emily Blunt and Florence Pugh.
Oh man, they both killed it.
We can talk a little bit about the fact that yes, Nolan does kind of have this really tough time writing women and having them consistently throughout the film itself, but he does give both Florence Pugh and Emily Blunt pretty big, good actory moments that are just as much on par with any of the other male members of the ensemble cast as well too. I wish Emily Blunt was given a little bit more.
Right.
To
She's
do.
excellent.
It felt like they focused
Yeah.
more on the fact that he was cheating on Emily Blunt than Emily Blunt herself.
And I think
and
that
it
was
felt a little cheated because I didn't feel the weight of his excursions because I didn't feel
Right.
their connection as in a relationship. It kind of just felt like they were introduced and they were married very quickly.
Right.
And you don't get much more relationship development beyond that.
And I think that it was also to kind of like set apart both the Florence Pugh character and the Emily Blunt character as
Right.
kind of these like opposing forces in his life too, and everything like that as well too. But even then, like, yeah, she just didn't have as much to do as I thought. I guess she was going to with the way she was introduced at the start of the film. That being said, her scene where she just gets to go toe to toe with Jason Clarke's awesome.
Yeah. Arguably one of the best scenes in
Yeah, where she just
Um,
fucking puts him in his place after he's just been like shitting on Oppenheimer for the last 45 minutes.
Yeah, and you can see she's one of the only people who's basically kind of backing him up of like, fuck that, man. You can't let these people talk to you like that. You know what I
Right.
mean? So finally, when it was her opportunity, she goes up there and to Nathaniel's point, I mean, he basically shits on him. She basically shits on him. One thing I wanted to say though too is the way how people pop in and out of this so much. I mean, in the first act, right? Like I said, there's those split timelines, so you can see where they're giving. I don't know. I guess like some type of deposition is probably the best
Yeah,
word, right?
yeah.
Where Oppenheimer is sitting there, so not with Robert Downey Jr.'s character, and Emily Blunt is sitting in the back where like the bystander is always standing.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize that was Emily Blunt sitting in the back until maybe like 50 minutes into this movie.
Sure.
It was like right before they actually introduced her character.
Yeah.
And like I'm starting looking, I was like, oh shit, I think that's Emily Blunt in the back. And then like fast forward 10 minutes and she's introduced. But
Yeah.
that's just how well this thing is shot. And like we have massive A-list actors just like as like fucking background people in certain scenes. And yeah, that's like I keep saying, it's just a testament to how people want to work with Nolan. One thing I would say to Adam's point, we don't really get to see the ramifications of any of Oppenheimer's kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Being promiscuous, right, and sleeping out of
Sure.
a marriage and whatnot. The scene where he actually has to detail that and his relation to Florence Pugh's character with her being a communist, and they're like, well, why did you see her? And he's like, well, I saw her and we had a sexual relationship. And then as Emily Blunt's sitting there's a scene, right, where she's sitting in that same room, but she's visualizing Oppenheimer having sex with Florence Pugh.
Yep.
Or Florence Pugh's character, I should say. And that's like great storytelling because like that's how that scene would happen in 100%.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And then she's like very disgruntled with it afterwards. And he's like, well, I don't know why you're upset. Like these are all things I've told you before. And then her rebuttal is more along the lines of, yeah, like now everybody knows this.
Yeah.
And that was just a very human experience and human
100%,
emotions of like,
yeah.
I don't care if like you do me wrong and I know it. Like once the world knows it, now I feel, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like embarrassing
and
to
that
her,
was-
yeah.
Yeah, for sure. That was excellent storytelling, in my opinion, of just like
Definitely.
the human emotions and the complexity of relationships.
I 100% agree. Yeah, that was definitely a good moment in the movie where you kind of just understand both sides of it, especially Emily Blunt's character being like, yeah, well, I accepted it, but now the whole world knows our business, and that embarrasses the
It's
hell
tough.
out of me, you know? Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, for sure.
One thing that's kind of not brought up fully is Florence Pugh's character. The reason, at least from the like things I've seen, the little research that I have done, the reason she her character Jean Tatlock didn't want to be with Oppenheimer is she questioned her own sexuality and stuff. Even to I guess to the degree from something that I saw that she may have like considered herself bisexual or lesbian, whatever it was, and that she just wouldn't come to grips with it, or it wasn't socially acceptable at the time. Not really hinted at fully in this movie. It's never really clear why she rejects Oppenheimer so much. I don't know if you guys got any sense of like why that relationship wasn't working out.
No, I was assuming it was because he couldn't commit to being a full communist.
That's kind of what they lead you to believe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But yeah, that is definitely a big part of that relationship that's never really brought up, and it's kind of a huge kind of piece of that, I feel like. But I mean, I guess maybe not in the grand scheme of things. At the end of the day,
yeah,
they weren't going to be together, and everything happened how it happened. But
yeah,
it's a small piece that gave a little more context for me in terms of their relationship.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, this is such a famous or like historically significant story that it's just weird because again you are going to come across famous people or important people to history multiple times throughout it, you know, like guys like Enrico Fermi and again Niels Bohr and stuff like that, like just huge legendary names in chemistry and stuff. And like I think for me that's the thing that again struck me as well too watching this movie was how much of this movie is reliant on how fast people find things out, or it's a race to discover more and increase your knowledge, but also it's you have to understand where other people's knowledge is and scientific discoveries that are being shared and should they be shared among people, should they be shared among nations, all of this kind of stuff around it that like today would never and can never be used as the same tension because we'll either read about it instantaneously on Twitter or you would send
X
or excuse me X
X
or like you know we would hear rumors about it from dudes posting on forums in science message boards 6 months ahead of time or something like that, you know, like so much of this movie and so much of the world at that time depended on people's distance from each other, how fast they could get it, and how quickly they could move ideas across continents. And I think this movie does a really interesting job of dramatizing that. Excuse me. And like it starts with that right from the start with you know, him talking about going to school. And he's like, well, you know, I'm not great at this, and the other thing, but this is what I want to study. And Bohr's just like, oh, well, then you got to go to Germany. Like, you got to go talk to these guys and do that. And, like, how weird that would be in the world today where, like, our actual thought leaders are in relatively same close location to each other because they have to be, not because there's better money somewhere else or something like that, you know, and just like the fact that we have better ways of communicating with each other just means that we are quite separated in some ways now, which, wow, guys, technology divides us. Great point, Nathaniel.
Great
but anyways, I'll shut up now and go sit by myself, and we'll talk later.
Go to Germany, Nathaniel. Go learn about social distancing with them.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Man, yeah, to your point, there are a lot of ideas in this, and I want to say the climax of the movie is obviously kind of the Trinity test, but it does extend after that. Now, for me, part of my criticism is that I do think the movie does kind of drop a gear after that as well, too, and then tries to pick it up again at the end of the movie, which your mileage may vary on that, I think, overall. Yeah. For me personally, this movie has enough going for it, and I think on the first watch I caught enough of the kind of themes that I was quite engaged towards the end of the movie as well too. But I could definitely feel the audience themselves kind of post the RDJ heel turn or villain reveal, everyone kind of disengaging a little bit, or their interest starting to wane at the end of the film itself.
I think everything up until the Trinity text is just so taxing because it does move at such a rapid rate, which I think, as you mentioned earlier, is just part of the filmmaking and in terms of, Oppenheimer's life probably up until that point was just decision after decision, rapid, building up to that point.
Yeah.
And then everything afterwards is the fallout, quote unquote.
Yep.
And so as a viewer, what movie did this similarly? There's a movie that did something of similar kind of editing and storytelling, pacing to like kind of exhaust you. Or it's not a movie. The Last of Us 2 is a 40-hour long single player game.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, you think
think
this is the end, this is the end, this is the end. And, as you keep going on, the characters, you feel like they should be done and they're not. And as a player, you feel like you should be done and you're not. And so you kind of get in sync with the character because you're playing longer than you think you should be, and you're going on, the characters are going on longer than you think they should be. This is very similar where after the Trinity test, it's been building up to this moment, and everything afterwards feels like much more dragged out, or not necessarily dragged out, but just I don't know how to explain it.
You see that echoed thematically as well too, where you have at the start of the film his visions that he is plagued with are of the universe and of music and of this kind of harmony that he is seeing out there and the beauty of what physics will be. And then by the time the bomb has been constructed and then subsequently used on Nagasaki and Hiroshima, he when he goes to his mind to get away or escape or try and see the rest of the world, it is now chaos, structure, just discordant rhythm, not really anything else out there. He can no longer see the music of the universe anymore. It has been either blocked or separated or severed from him, more or less, because of what he has had to do. And I think there's a point in the movie where all of the scientists, I think they say, oh, well, Hitler is doing this. It's when Bohr comes over. Kenneth Branagh shows back up and he says something along the lines of, these guys are looking for this, and I was in Denmark and they were asking me about that. And one of the scientists, I think it's Teller, it might be Benny Safdie's character, starts laughing, and they realize that that the Germans have started going down the wrong path.
Yeah.
And that's really...
that's where
I
they're
think the
using
line
water
is-
versus uranium.
Yep.
Yeah, the line is like they took a left turn or something like that.
Yeah.
They take a wrong turn or whatever.
Yep. And so that's the moment where Oppenheimer's great fear is no longer really relevant to everything that they've pushed forward. But they've now committed so much that they can no longer stop
There's
the
no
machine.
turning around.
Yeah, they can't turn back.
And that, I think, is where that's a great scene on the kind of the tragedy of it, and where his life starts to change, and where the true, as we get to the final act of the movie and the kind of final lines that we live with, is the true consequences of his actions start to really pick up at that point and he loses control of it at that point.
Yeah.
Where the whole reason why he started to do this and why he said, oh my God, we have to do this, is because Heisenberg could have had the bomb. But once they knew it was not going that way, oh boy.
Yeah.
And then I think the movie does a great job of just showing what fucking slimy structure, like the worst people in the world just run the world as well too.
They're at the top.
Yeah.
I was like, we didn't even get to like the political sense of it.
Yeah. Right.
That's the next part that I believe is truly grounded in reality because we can see so much of that at today's age, right? Through like social media, the internet forums, where like I think that's totally how this thing would go, right? Where like somebody's able to invent some type of, or somebody's able to make a significant, right, scientific achievement, and then it's kind of like, all right, well, like, fuck it, let's throw this guy completely under the bus and shit on him for years. But then we're gonna fast forward 30 years from now and be like, look how far we've come, look how progressive we are. We want to see this person,
Yep.
right? And I think that's just the epitome of like, America. You know what I mean? Or
Or-
Emily Blunt even kind of mentioned that eventually. Or actually, no, I think that's Albert Einstein. They fast forward, or they flash back to the conversation Oppenheimer has with Albert Einstein at the beginning of the movie, where that's basically what he details to him is like, hey, like, basically like they're gonna rip you apart, they're gonna shit on you, they're gonna hate you, right? But then eventually, when it's convenient for them, they're gonna support.
Yep.
And they're going to give you all the praise, and that's basically what happens because I guess as a talking point of the plot, which I don't believe we've yet discussed, Oppenheimer then takes the stance of, well, basically like we shouldn't be using this for warfare. Like I pretty much built this just because to Nathaniel's point earlier, we thought the opposition, right, were building this type of bomb. This isn't something that I necessarily drop down on 200,000 people or however many people have passed away.
The reason for building this was so that no one else should ever have it, but we should never use it, basically.
Right.
And then they immediately were like, well, fuck off. We're going to use it. See ya.
Yeah. And then they try to turn it on to him and basically paint him as the person of like, he's the reason they dropped the bomb, right? Of like, well, you created it for this. You knew what we wanted to use it for. And they kind of spin that entire narrative. That's the entire court case legal drama setup of this is Oppenheimer and Emily Blunt's character trying to defend themselves of like, hey, like you guys are fucking us over here, but they have no one to support. It's basically all politicians. It's the president. It's the U.S. government versus scientists.
Yep.
And that's a tough battle. That's a tough battle. And that's the final act of this where you see that in Oppenheimer, eventually he loses, right? Because they take his position off the board where he can no longer have say-so in what nuclear missiles and what nuclear bombs are being used for XYZ. And then I don't know the time jump because it doesn't quite tell you in the film, but it looks like it's got to at least be north of probably 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
And then he's in the White House and they're like, well, thank you for your service. You've done so much for the country. And it's a great portrayal because you see Emily Blunt's character. She doesn't shake anybody's hand. And that's something she said in real time was like, she's basically like, you're spineless for still looking them in the face and shaking their hand after they
Yeah.
And then she has the opportunity to do that and she doesn't extend her hand to anybody. And it was a very powerful statement.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I love thematically the choice that links everything together is this conversation that between Oppenheimer and Einstein that is witnessed by the Strauss. Yeah, the Robert Downey Jr. character who then cannot see beyond his own arrogance that it must be about him in some way.
Yeah.
When in reality it is Einstein saying, okay, you've done it, and I understand, and I've been there, and I sympathize, but now the consequences are coming. Quite literally, as one of the consequences of his actions is viewing them at that time and taking exactly the wrong message from it. But then obviously it ends on the line of, well, I think we already did kick off the end of the universe because we've handed humanity the keys to its own destruction intentionally and are just hoping that someone is going to not use it when in fact we already have, which as a generation, all four of us who have been born long after these things were used on the planet, it's a sobering thought to really kind of have thrust into your face again that really was already used, and it already as terrifying it is to think about,
especially with how the world is today geopolitically. With the war going on in Ukraine and Russia saying all sorts of wild things, and
North Korea.
I was just about to say North Korea saying the U.S. has reached its limits and their actions have warranted nuclear strikes, whatever. It is just, you're right, very sobering realizing this is still very much a world we live in today, even though it's something we haven't thought about much. I think at least in my lifetime, it's been up until the past couple of years. I don't know if it's preparation. I wouldn't go that far.
Is this getting us ready for something? Does somebody already know something?
Yeah, this talk about just the actual time placement of when this movie released is excellent. There couldn't have been a better time for something to release.
My favorite take coming out of this has been my mom, who called me afterwards and is like, are they trying to say that Robert Downey Jr.'s character took out JFK?
What?
And I was like,
that's when she came
to that point either. And that's what I was saying. There's so many. The sound mixing on this is frustrating because there's so many small lines like that I may have missed, and like it's fucking gone.
No,
unless
like
I go
it's
see it
it's a
again in person.
wild
Like, 'cause that was-
connection.
That is a wild connection to make.
yeah, but that was such a small line at
The
the end where
JFK
they're like,
line.
oh yeah, like there's so many lines like this. We're like, oh yeah, that's JFK.
Yeah.
But, like if you're like chewing on popcorn or something while that goes on, like you'll never get that reference, and that doesn't even exist in the movie to you, if that makes sense. So there's so many moving pieces that where there's literally monumental historic moments that are in like one line of dialogue that you can completely miss in this film.
Yeah, I agree.
That's what I was telling. It's such a big movie. It's so vast. There's so much.
There's so much more to unpack. I feel like we haven't even like scratched.
And
the
it makes
surface.
you want to watch it like immediately.
No,
Like
I
I said,
do
I
wanna go
probably
see it
could have
again.
gone back to back on this.
Whew.
I don't know about back
just
to
to
back,
see if
but
I can pick up more.
I do want to see it again.
And I guess really my only gripes were, like you guys kind of stated, some of the dialogue's kind of hard to get, just because there's so much happening either in the background or it's just not mixed very well, which seems to be Nolan's only like downfall that we typically pick at for him.
I also wonder
But,
how much too is that just theaters not tuning their systems to
Sure.
his mixing standards
Maybe.
as well too. You know, in some ways.
Definitely could be.
And I think the things that I liked artistically, obviously this would be really cool to see in 70 mil. I don't think it'll happen for me, but maybe.
Let's road trip it, baby. 3 hours there, 3 hour movie, 3 hour back.
It'd be cool for sure.
I'm down. I'm just saying the Indianapolis theater is running screenings of this till like the end of August.
I mean,
just throwing that
I don't
out
see why
there.
they wouldn't.
I mean, are you free August 25th?
A little wrapped up that day.
Are you? I mean, you could reschedule.
No,
Oh man. Okay.
probably not.
Okay.
And then I just like some of the way that, like, in the beginning where you see Oppenheimer in his bed talking about like his struggles that he had early on, like being homesick, but he's like seeing like the lights and like all the molecules like potentially like compact, like all the sound is happening. The beams of light kind of going on screen. I thought that was a really cool way to kind of see how he sees essentially very early on in the movie. And that was a pretty cool insight to one. I like that audio. It's kind of an interstellar kind of audio where like the screen's kind of shaking and the audio matches up perfectly with it. But either way, that's kind of like my favorite thing as far as like the art side of this. But yeah, the political aspect is insane. Kind of like what Nathaniel's mom said. A lot of people, didn't think about that question. And the crazy part is the government probably knows exactly what happened in that situation, and we just don't know. And that kind of plays into the sides of like, what else don't we know that the government has, or they're obviously very good at hiding things from pretty much the entire world, let alone the people that live in the US. So it's pretty crazy to kind of, get your wheels turning on how much of that is still happening today.
Well, UFO hearing tomorrow. So I guess we'll find out a little bit more of what they've been hiding.
Allegedly.
But yeah, I think that last 45 is so interesting to me. Because
I actually really liked it. I like the way
did
that they
too.
kind of unpacked everything. I've always been like into the court hearings and things like that. So it's very cool for me to receive information like that, especially on a movie like this.
Mhm.
So yeah, I don't know if it's just because I like that style, and that's kind of how I like to receive information, especially in like that kind of sense where there is this actual like cases about it and there's like that stuff actually happened. But yeah, it was a very cool way. I actually really liked it, and I think they actually put a nice little bow on it.
I agree. I think it would have been a little to say anticlimactic at this point is not the right word, but a little anticlimactic if they just left the movie ending kind of at the Trinity test, and the fact that they were able to flesh out the rest of the story and make the Trinity test not the climax, like have an additional story beat and an entire kind of plot related to everything we've been watching already, but just add on to all the context of the bomb itself. I think that was really well done, because I think if this movie was just the Manhattan Project, that obviously would have been kind of its culmination, and then the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I think having that being the end of it would be a little hard to kind of build up to, almost, in terms of like the grand scheme of things. But having that kind of, when you're focusing on Oppenheimer himself and having that climax be the whole Strauss versus Oppenheimer thing, it makes sense for this movie specifically, where it is just focused on Oppenheimer. If it's a Manhattan movie or Manhattan Project movie itself, that's a different story. But the fact that the Oppenheimer story didn't end at the Trinity test, I think is very wise, and I'm very glad that they continued it beyond that.
I would agree.
Yeah, it's crazy too. Like, all the scientists that were at that thing, like a ton of them ended up dead from radiation poisoning and a ton of shit like that. Like,
yeah, I can imagine that they didn't really know how far away to.
Oh yeah, man, it was bad. Like, pretty much anyone that was at Las Cruces or in Los Alamos ended up with some sort of like cancer, just because of just all the fallout from the nuclear tests and everything.
And I'm
like
sure
that.
even just building the bomb itself.
Oh yeah,
exposes
so
you to.
I know
100%.
the Jack Quaid's character, the guy playing the bongo drums. He went on, and later on, while they were doing, they took the core from one of the additional bombs that they were going to create after they did Fat Man and Little Boy. But they were using it, and they were testing it for energy. And like, you remember when we saw them kind of putting those big blocks around the sphere and everything like that. So part of that was like, you do that, and then that raises the amount. I don't know science as well. I'm not a physics person, but it basically raises the amount of energy that's being put off at any given time, and it makes the amount of radiation concentrates into different areas. Right. At one point, he like was picking something up or something like that, or would like they would cover the like radiation itself or the core with like a screwdriver or with a
I know
big
the
lid
story that you're talking
and
about.
a screwdriver, and
Yep.
it slipped out for a moment and it irradiated his hand for like half a second. Was like dead in like 3 days or something like that.
I know the story you're
wow.
talking about. It was like a not used core, but like
It's called the demon core.
Yes, the demon cores. But yeah, you're right. And they were doing like just tests on it basically, and it was the lid to the bomb or the lid to the core was being held up. You're right, by like
With
a
a
screwdriver
screwdriver.
or something.
Yeah.
It slipped for just a moment, and he said to everyone in the room, like,
We're
"That's it.
dead."
Yeah, we're dead." And I think he died less than 2 weeks later. I think is the number. But yeah, it was wild.
But anyways, the point being is that, to your point, these people in Oppenheimer's life did continue on just behind the Trinity test, and these guys did continue in science and on the cutting edge of these fields. Like, it's just crazy to me that they were just all had them in one place as well too.
That's that's the hardest thing to comprehend, right? Is like,
and just because it
for
would
a
never
moment.
happen today.
Oh, it would
I think
never.
I think that's the other thing
so
too, is
hard to
that
do.
the fact that that they were able to convince so many people and everyone that, like, hey, this is a problem and we all need to be pulling in the same direction on it or we are screwed.
Right.
And like, you don't understand this, and it is beyond your comprehension to understand, but I need you to go with me on this.
Right. Just trust me.
Yeah, and like, that just would never happen.
I don't think. Yeah, I can see that happening today. And also the well, I guess I shouldn't say the degree to which they were able to keep it under wraps, because I'm sure there's military projects that we will never hear about for a long time. So I can understand how that would happen. But I feel like if you grabbed a group of scientists today and just had them sign NDAs, something that would slip.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think...
Because I think it's a difference between, I am a military scientist, or I'm just a scientist.
It's like I said, just the rate at which we can get information out of that area is just instantaneous now.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Different time. It was cool, kind of. They definitely fit that, or they made you feel like you were back there for really well in terms of like like you said before, the rate at which information travels, and he has to go all the way to Germany. I love the line where it's like, I thought Berkeley has the best quantum mechanics school in the world. Yeah, after I built it. Like, what a good line.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, after I started
That was,
it.
The other thing I was
Yeah,
going to bring up. Go ahead, Blake. Sorry.
Go ahead. I was gonna say another funny line too, because Nolan does have a few beats of kind of there. Another funny, I just said, but they basically walk off right due to all the pressure from the military, where Matt Damon comes in and was basically like, "Hey, what I tell you about letting people project? It's only supposed to be you and these XYZ people." And the guy's like, "You know what? I can't take this pressure. Fuck it, I quit." And then Oppenheimer is kind of like, "Well, aren't you worried about the security breach this guy has? He's disgruntled and he just left." And Matt Damon's character is like, "No, we'll just kill him."
Yeah,
yeah. So yeah, that was funny too, because that's something you're thinking as the viewer. You're like, well, they're so tight on security. Like, this guy's probably gonna tell
Toast,
the world
yeah.
about this. You know what I mean? Yeah, that was funny.
All right, we're running a little long on time.
Yeah,
I would love to keep talking about this movie because there is still a lot to unpack. I feel like we could go into, but I feel like we've talked about all of the beats that we need to. Yeah.
Yep. Let's get it up and get out of here.
Yes, sir. Welcome back, listeners who skipped over the spoiler segment of the podcast. Excuse me. We're gonna go ahead and throw Oppenheimer up upon our entropy list. For those of you who do not know, the entropy list is Back Row Banter's official list of all the movies we have reviewed, all compared to one another. It's essentially how we rate our movies. If you want to see the list for yourself, go ahead, check that episode description where it is linked to my Letterboxd. Episode 156 here. All right.
I think I got a spot.
Do you have a spot?
I think I got a spot.
Throw her in there, bud.
12.
Oof.
That's
Yeah, that's up there.
a ranking.
That's up there.
My Letterboxd won't load the movie posters.
So that is Under Arrival above Whiplash. That's unfortunate for
It
you.
is very unfortunate. I love
Try
seeing-
refreshing the screen.
I've done everything I can.
You said 12.
I said 12.
Wouldn't that be
Or 13, I'm
Under
sorry.
Alien above your name?
13, I'm sorry.
It's 13 below your name, above Arrival.
Got it.
Yeah. No.
Hello?
I got thrown off. Yeah, whatever. I wanted 13. Below Arrival, above Whiplash. That's what I said earlier, right? When
That's
I said 12.
That's 14. Though.
I know.
That's 14.
What the hell? Okay, fine. 14. then.
14 is below Arrival.
Originally, you said 12.
What did I say when I said the movies?
You
it's
went
between.
below Arrival and you went above
That's what I'm
Whiplash,
asking, yes.
Meaning you put it at 14.
Thank you.
So Whiplash moves down to 15.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay. That is all we need to know. 14.
Happens to the best of us. Nathaniel.
Yeah.
I hear.
Anyways, justifications for having it that high. It's really good, but also, I don't know. Like, yeah, I think this is just like in terms of those ones. I guess I'll put it this way: my other kind of movie I think that has the Prometheus storyline and metaphor is The Lighthouse, which I think this movie also shares a lot of DNA with in some kind of weird ways in terms of
weird ways.
auteur director talking about, in black and white, I guess, but like a lot of control on set and whatever. That's a whole nother conversation. But like, I don't see this going above Inception overall. I don't think this is a top 10 movie either, to be completely honest with everyone. And I do think it is, I think like Your Name, Alien, Arrival, those are movies that like are personally for me, I'll like better than this one. But I think also having this in the top 15 justifies it from like a quality standpoint as well too. So yeah, that's where I'm going with it at 14. Below Arrival and above Whiplash.
Fair. So, I mean, for listeners' sake, right, that is the second highest ranking new movie we have. New as in we caught it like in time when it came out. The only thing ranked above that we caught in time when it came out is Spider-Man, Spider-Verse.
Right. Which is one that I think I've cooled on slightly over the last few weeks that it's come out. It'll be interesting
Yeah.
when I do a rewatch of that overall. I mean, emotionally, that movie is very, very good, but we'll see. But anyways, where I've got this one, 14, below Arrival, above Whiplash. Am I the highest on the list, boys? Tell me.
Well, I think I got a good spot for mine. I'm gonna say like 30, but what I actually mean
Okay, good.
is no, I got this sitting at 21. I do think that this is better than some of the movies above that. I would put this above 9 Days. I would put this probably above Green Room. I'd definitely put this over above Whiplash. I think it's just it's Lord of the Rings. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll just say
Yeah, I
it's
get it.
fucking Lord of the Rings.
No, I get it.
Yeah, so that is of epic proportion. As far as these kind of movies go, but there's just so much more material there with Lord of the Rings. Not to say that you can't make a trilogy with something like this. It's just obviously not the way that it is. But I think that this was executed ridiculously well, and like I said, I do think that it goes above some of the movies that I have above 21. But yeah, I'm gonna go 21. I'll give it one of the Lord of the Rings.
Fair.
So 21 below Fellowship and above Green Knight.
Correct.
Okay.
Adam, Blake.
Adam, I want to let Adam let it rip. I feel like Adam's pretty high on this joint.
I am. It's weird because I think my objective score for this movie is much higher than like my overall enjoyment of the movie.
See, and I think I'm a slightly
Because it is
the opposite direction, just ever so slightly.
Yeah, I just think the double feature for me is really like throwing me off. And I think I will be.
I wonder, yeah.
I think it did.
You might just been a little emotionally drained by the end of the day as well, too.
Let me tell you guys, Barbie is an emotional roller coaster. All right, you guys haven't seen it yet, but Barbie's all over the place. Anyway, the double feature, seeing it on film, like the actual 70 minutes.
It's so cool.
It was cool. It was cool, but it was also like a little jarring because I could tell I was getting things cut off because it was filmed in IMAX. I could really kind of feel a little tighter in terms of like. Not claustrophobic, but I could just feel like I was missing a little bit, and the print that we had a lot of like screen tearing, which I was like, all right, that's kind of cool. Like, not screen tearing, it wasn't bad. It was just like marks so you can tell, and I was like, oh, that's fun because I don't see that often. And there's like flickering, which is just you're gonna get on a projector, like an actual like film projector. So like there was a lot of variables thrown into my Oppenheimer experience that I think are throwing me off my true feelings for the movie, and so I'm trying to favor this objectively a little bit higher than my overall like regular enjoyment and regular scoring would be. That being said, I think I'm pretty comfortable throwing it at 19, below 9 Days and above Green Room, and below Return of the King, which I said was my favorite Lord of the Rings. But I think 19 is where I'm gonna slot it. 9 Days is just a hard one for me. Love that one movie, and even though I put Across the Spider-Verse above it, that one's still a hard one for me to pass over. And Green Room, like, I don't think Green Room necessarily shouldn't be at 19, but I do think it somehow got skewed a little higher maybe than it should be. Like,
yeah, that is one that's
it's still very good. Like I think it's a very good movie. So I'm not like mad that it's that high, and it's not like I think
that
it
was just became kind of like a thing that we just put it up there early on.
It was like a rival.
Like,
it got stuck high and just stayed high. And I like I said, I don't mind it at 19. Green Room was a great movie. 90 minutes, you're in, you're out, and you're on the edge of your seat for 80 minutes. So great movie. But regardless, I do think this edges that out in quite a few ways. So I'm going to be at 19 myself. And Tyler, remind me, you were at 21?
21.
21.
So we have a 14, a 21, and a 19. Blake, where are you sitting at?
Yeah, fellas. Tough, right? Because I immediately went to a new film that I was also high, Spider-Verse, but then seeing that at 9 is like, geez.
Yeah, that was that because I kind of did the same thing where I was like, "Woof,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, that's top 10."
I
don't
still
know
enjoy.
if
I will say, I personally still am
Oh,
fine
it's
putting
not-
a crossover this movie.
But it's not that like it's the thing. I think it's just the double. Like Blake said, it's putting two directly into the top 10, very close to each other. Where you're just like,
Yeah.
oh, I just don't know how that's going to go.
How that's gonna age.
Yeah.
Yeah,
To me, it's the beauty of the entropy list, ladies and gentlemen.
it is.
It's the beauty
Yeah.
of the entropy list.
You're
All
not
right,
wrong.
let her ride where you want to ride.
For sure. So I see that, I'm kind of like, oh, that's tough. But then I see Inception, right? Which I think most people, it's actually really hard to argue what Nolan's masterpiece is. I think most people would probably either that or Interstellar. That as an Inception or Interstellar. And this is one where I'm like, okay, do I like this more than Inception? And I don't know. I think I like Inception more as a film. I think this is more of monument. I think this is more like a feat, quote unquote, in cinema, right? To make a film like this, a 3-hour, it's basically a 3-hour like biopic.
Yeah.
It's tough. But then I see like Jurassic Park at 7, and that's a movie I just like don't care for at all. So it's tough, fellas. It's tough. Honestly, I don't think I can put it above Get Out. I think that has a lot of weight to me. I think Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, as I said, will have a lot of weight to me on replay value alone.
True.
Let her ride, Blake.
Yeah,
Don't overthink it.
Yeah, it's tough. Honestly, I hate to put them next to each other, but I think I'd put this at 10.
All right.
And I would put it I would put it after Across the Spider-Verse and before Inception. So I'll put Nolan back to back near each other, and then we'll let the list sort it out.
Speaking of sorting it out, then we get an average rating of
What does that give us, a 15?
16. Even. So I think does that typically mean we put it above what's there, right?
I think we take it to
IMDb. Yeah.
When can we amend the IMDb to
Well,
Letterboxd? I feel like that's just a much better data source.
Well, before we take it to IMDb or anything, we do our Back Row Banter tiebreak. Do we?
Oh, you
feel
mean just
strongly-
like do the Letterboxd ratings as our tiebreaker rather than the
yeah, I
IMDb
feel like that's just
ratings?
way more credible
Oh.
people giving opinions on things opposed to like.
To be honest, Blake, I've never considered it, but I'm not opposed.
I like that.
I'm gonna
aspect,
oppose.
fellas.
I still want to do our
If we
Back Row
could vote on
Banter
that.
tiebreak. Do we
I
want
don't
to?
really care what we use because
Right.
at the end of the day, if we all agree on it, then the number's only there. The
So-
tiebreaker is only there if we don't agree. So
Right. Above or below Lighthouse, boys?
I'm above because that was
I
the
will
one
also be
movie.
above.
That was the one movie that I put it below. That I was like, I would put this above Lighthouse. So I'm above.
Not fond of me lobster. The Lighthouse is fucking good, fellas.
Yeah, I love The Lighthouse.
Yeah,
It's
I'll
bad
put
luck
it
to
above.
kill a
I'll put it above.
seabird.
I'll put it above. The Lighthouse is awesome.
Well, since we're already at 3-0, I'll just put a vote in for the Lighthouse above it, and just as for a dissenting opinion for me and Blake there.
Well, there you have it. Oppenheimer at 16, the second highest Nolan film. This is number 3. Inception,
I think it's only
Oppenheimer.
2.
Oh, 4.
we
This
do
is
have-
4.
Yeah, we
Dunkirk,
What?
Tenet, Oppenheimer,
do
You
have
can't
Dunkirk.
forget about Dunkirk.
Inception.
Where's Dunkirk?
It's a little
35.
lower than you'd like it to be.
That's a good movie, man. I really
It's a
like that
very
movie.
good movie. And then I say it's
Yeah,
35,
this is
and then
better.
it's like right
I don't
below.
care for
This
it.
is 100% better. No doubt about it.
Dunkirk's really good though.
Look, you guys good.
Yeah. Where's
Dunkirk's
Tenet?
fantastic. Tenet's.
Far lower. unfortunately.
102.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You know, as much shit as I give that movie, it's not that bad. It should
Come
definitely
on
get
now,
moved up a
yeah.
little bit.
We got to have a little integrity on here.
I'm burying you.
Oh
Yeah,
well.
We'll get it to next year.
Maybe when
we'll
I
move it.
can read, or
Somebody.
when I can hear that movie, I'll move it up if they remix it. All right, fellas. I wanted to do what we're watching this week because Papa Schwartz made a comment that
It's been a while.
he's disappointed that even though he agrees the review should be prioritized, that we've been slacking on what
was
we're
waiting for
watching. Which
Wait,
I would agree with. We have been
You
slacking
got
a little bit.
you got a quick what you're watching earlier from us and Tyler at the Tyler's weekend watches. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Extravaganza.
Yeah, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings, Lake Placid, Tropic Thunder.
That was all pre-pod, I believe.
Well, there it's pod. It's podded
Now
now.
it's pod. Okay.
It is
Correct.
pod. So that's what Tyler and I watched.
Pod poo.
Oh, and the Formula One race.
Correct. Grand Prix.
Saw Lando Norris got another podium.
You didn't
Sure
do
did.
McLaren redemption story.
fun
Holy
race.
crap.
To be honest with you, Danny Rick, straight off
How
the
do you
bench,
do?
coming in
Yeah, how'd you
13th.
do? 13th?
Yeah,
No points.
out qualified Sonoda though, and I mean beat him
He
in
got
the race
hit
too.
Lap one.
Yeah, he got
so-
hit lap one in the race. Went out in quali 2 in an AlphaTauri, which not bad. And got hit in the race. Came in 13th though, and still finished higher than Sonoda. So,
Hey,
well, what I'm saying is Checo better watch his steps because Danny Rick's coming
could
back.
you imagine that reunion of a Verstappen, Ricardo, Red Bull?
Man.
It'll never happen.
I don't know.
It won't.
I don't think it will either.
It won't.
I don't think Christian Horner's can.
There's too much competition between the two. Danny Rick would not sit by and just be a second driver.
No, you say that, and then he already left once, and I think he realized how big of a mistake. So he
Those
might
are
just shut
fair.
his mouth,
Because
take a paycheck,
and here's what I'll
take
say:
the number 2 spot.
because there is every chance that at some point some weird shit happens to Max's car or something. Who knows? And all of a sudden, Danny Rick is driver number 1. Oh man,
I think I wouldn't be shocked. I don't think it's impossible.
I don't think so either.
I think it's
I
very
love
likely.
pretty much every driver on that grid, but if you
Lance Stroll.
are not there to try and win a championship, you're just there to be a second driver, then go open the door for someone else.
Yeah, I mean, like who's doing that though? What I'm saying is though, like let's say if I'm out there on the grid at this point, right? It's clear
Nuclear Nathaniel.
Nuclear Nathaniel's.
He's got his contacts put in.
Bro,
He's feeling good. He can
I'm
see
coming in
straight.
with this nuclear sponsorship. I've got so much money to the bag. Like the fact
Nuclear is stickers all over the car.
That's
There's
right.
only one logo. It's nuclear contacts.
I'm just saying that like if I'm doing that, like it's very clear that over the last 2 years or whatever, Red Bull's clearly the top team. So just even if you're this second driver, you're gonna have more chances to win even on a podium or something, like if you're on the best team. If you're the second best driver on the
If you're in
best team, you're gonna have a better shot at
If you-
winning at outright than the best driver on the seventh best.
if you're in
team.
the same car as the number 1 guy,
you got a
you,
shot.
you have the best shot possible.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. We'll see.
We'll see.
Checo's been struggling. Yeah.
He
I haven't been
he kind
watching
of brought it
last
back.
month or
He
so.
kind of brought it back over this
He-
last weekend.
He struggles like throughout the entire weekend, and then his
Yeah.
races are perfectly fine.
100% correct. I also agree with that, and I think it's a little bit overblown. He just doesn't necessarily quali well all the time.
Fair enough. Except for those street races, he's still got those in the bag.
It's true, but that is what Tyler and I have
Street
been
King.
watching.
Cool. Blake, you watch anything you want to bring up quick?
I don't think I caught anything wild recently. Already brought infinity pools and me. Daniel talked about a few things, but yeah, I don't think I got to anything this week. No, not that I can recall.
For sure. I'm trying to think if I watched anything. Not really, to be honest. I feel like I turned
Yeah.
on my TV to watch something, but I forgot what it was. It was like live sports, basically. So
There is something I do want to get to. I think it's called. It's actually on Netflix. Dad was telling me about it, and I've been seeing a lot of it on YouTube and kind of some Reddit film chats I frequent. I think it's called They Clone Tyrone.
Oh yeah, I saw the
Something
trailer
like
for that.
The the Netflix joint. It's got Jamie Foxx and a few others in it.
Yeah, it kind of has
And-
a.
I'm sorry. Did you say you saw it?
No, I saw the trailer for it because I turned on Netflix
Okay, yeah.
yesterday. Watched it.
From
That's
what
John
I've
Boyega.
seen, people say it's actually pretty good, man. So like that's something I should probably try to get to in the next week or two. So I'll keep you guys updated on that. But I've heard nothing but good reviews. People say it's very comparable to like the Atlanta universe, which is obviously very important.
I was gonna say that, or it kind of
So-
felt like Sorry to Bother You in some ways as well too.
Yeah, right. So right up my alley, sure. It's something I got to get to in the next few days.
But folks, if you want to give us a 5-star review, I'll read it out here on the podcast. But just give it in app; it helps out, helps us, grow, helps us show up in the algorithm because we're not sponsored yet, so we do this for free. And unless more people click on us and listen to us, it's just gonna be you guys hearing us all week. Which we love you, but we'd like some more people to talk to.
We'd like
as
more
well,
people
too.
to love,
Yeah, that's
We
right.
got a lot of love to give here.
That's right. There's 4 of us. We got a lot of love
We
to
got
give.
so much love to give.
Too much. Anyways, if you give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, I will read it out, and you can say whatever you want. It could be nice. It could be funny. Just don't be evil. And yeah, Adam.
Yeah, you can also send us an email to backrowbanterpod@gmail.com if you got any questions or anything you want us to answer, or any movie suggestions for things you want us to review in between new releases. We are always looking for suggestions. I think we mentioned how we'd love to have a movie none of us have seen that's not new to theaters. So like a VOD movie that's new to all of us would be fun. Hard to do given our diverse, portfolio of or discography of movies we've all seen, whatever you want to call it. I don't know. But yeah, send us those suggestions for movies to review because we're always looking for them. You can also, while you're at it, follow us on Twitter at Banter Row, on Instagram at Back Row Banter Pod, and our YouTube is just Back Row Banter. Please go subscribe to us there, even if it is not your primary place of listening. BlakeHolder, where can the people find you at, my man?
Yo, Letterboxd, I'll be on there. Username BlakeHolder. Some things out of 5 stars. PSN, Xbox, Mr. Watercoolers, new Mortal Kombat coming out. So if anybody does play Mortal Kombat wherever you're located, whether our listener in Denmark, our listeners in Canada, or whoever's playing us in the state of Washington, if you're a Mortal Kombat player, please let me. That's all I got.
Adam.
You can find me on Twitter at Aish24, on Letterboxd at Aish, and on Twitch at twitch.tv/Aish whenever I get back to streaming. Nathaniel.
You can find me on Twitter and Letterboxd at NSGingrich or on Instagram at NathanielG92. Sandpiper Tapes is my other podcast. Tyler, tell us about where we can find you.
Letterboxd, Instagram, and X. You idiots.
That's true.
It's all Tyler Dallas VID. Hell yes.
With that being said, folks, gets us to the end of our episode.
Yeah. Thank you all for listening, especially if you made it this far. We really appreciate it. Shout out new pod listener, Yasik,
What up, Yasik?
from Best Buy 305. He's been coming in. He's talking to me about he listened to Mission Impossible, listened to Fast X. I don't know what else he's listened to, but he's already anticipating this Oppenheimer rap. So appreciate you listening, man. Glad you're enjoying it, and pass it along, of course. Be like Yasik, listeners. Pass it along. Anyway, thank you all for listening. Like I said, especially if you made it this far into the episode, we really do appreciate it, and you're my favorite type of listener. Join us next week for our review. Oh, I never said next week's review. How sad. Barbie. I mean, I mentioned it, but Barbie. Go see Barbie, folks. Seems like a lot of you already have. But yeah, join us next week for our review of Barbie. We'll be RB.
Be excellent to each other, everyone, and we will be RB.
Thanks for stopping by, and we appreciate everything you can and will do to help us grow. And you know what? If I took anything away from this weekend, it's just don't take what you have for granted. And enjoy the moments. But other than that, we'll be RB.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for the support as always. We wouldn't be able to continue this podcast without you. So we'll be RB.
young America. Ready for another lesson.
Hey Ty, what's the recommendation on the food for your wedding? Should I go chicken, beef, or vegetarian? What are you rocking?
It's up to you. I'm having beef.
You having beef?
That's actually what I'm trying to figure out this evening myself. Adam.
What is the vegetarian option?
Pesto pasta.
Oh, that sounds so good.
I don't know how good it is because we didn't try that.
Oh, okay. How hard is it to mess up pesto pasta, though, you know?
I mean, the rest of their food was good, so.
That's good. That's good. It's coming up, though, only, 4 weeks?
It's a month today.
A month today? Oh, hey, that's right. Nervous? Excited?
Not yet. Excited for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely not nervous yet.
But you know you will be.
Probably.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't see why I wouldn't be.
How was the bachelor party?